Hello and welcome to Paxton Road TV. This is our weekly show, Talking Points, where we talk all things Tottenham. And this week's subject is selling Harry Kane. Could it be a good thing for Tottenham? I'm joined by some very special guests in the house, Mike, Darius, Sid, Abbi, and the bun, Danny. Before we start the show, like, subscribe, share, comment, please. If it's your first time watching, please push that like button. Please share share all the content as well, and leave comments. We want to hear from you. We can't do any of these shows without interaction. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, let us. I can see everybody's rubbing their hands, so there's going to be some differences of opinion. So what I'm going to do firstly is I'm just going to go round each of you, just a quick, based on the question itself, is selling Harry Kane a good thing for Spurs? And you can just give a quick overview of what your thoughts are, and then we'll get into the actual show. So I'm going to start off, as usual, put Mike under pressure. Mike, what's your thoughts?
No. It's as simple as that. Anyone says it's a good idea for Kane to be sold, it's talking bollocks, basically. It's as short and as sweet and as simple as that. I do get the whole, if we do sell him and if we get a considerable amount of money for him, I'm talking well over 100 million. Then I understand the argument that it could be used to rebuild Spurs, but no, I'd rather Kane be playing for Spurs than against us. It's a no-brainer.
100%.
Surely.
Yeah, no-brainer from one. Darius, up next.
I think I'm about to start talking bollocks, I'm not going to lie, guys. Obviously, okay, so let's start with the obvious. Obviously, losing Kane is probably the worst thing that can happen to us in the now. But when I look at it and I think about the situation that we're in, Harry Kane's 27 years old now. This whole debacle that's happened in the past week or so, I think he's 28 in June or something. This whole debacle that's happened in this past week or so is clearly proven to us now that he wants to leave. So for me, I believe that we've seen peak Harry Kane performance at Tottenham now. I don't think he's going to want to push as hard as he is next season. And for that reason, and the other reason of the fact that he could get injured next season and it could be bad and it could be the last one. For example, I use Hazard. Hazard got injured when he joined Real Madrid, and that seemed to have ruined his Real Madrid career. If Harry Kane gets another big injury, it's going to knock his value down. It could knock his value down by half. It really could. And if we're seriously on about this rebuild and how we actually have to, kind of be tough and vigilant, we're going to have to make a few sacrifices. We're going to have to take a few risks. And in my opinion, the biggest asset to sell is Harry Kane for 150 million. And if you can replace him with the correct players and use the...
stop you, Darius, because you're going too far. I'm stopping you.
Sorry.
We've got a show to do.
No. Let me say no. I'll say no.
I'm going to come down to Sid next. Sid's next. What's your thoughts, Sid? Selling a good thing or not?
I think personally, in my opinion, at the moment, it will be a good thing because no player is bigger than the club. Harry Kane is one of the players who's bigger than the club. But unfortunately, I agree with Darius. At some point, I think we just got to cash in because injuries and whether he's going to be as prolific next season. So quick, sweet and simple. I think it's a good idea.
Interesting. We're moving round. Here we go. We're getting to the middle now, Abbi. Is it a good thing for us to be selling Harry Kane at this point in time?
I see both their points, but no, absolutely not. For me,
I agree.
He's the most valuable part. He's literally the only good thing about the club at this moment in time. In terms of potentially getting players to even come and want to play this ridiculous Conference League that we're going to be in. The pull of Harry Kane in terms of letting him go. I just don't see what the club have to offer. I mean, only Son is remotely in the same ballpark as Harry Kane in terms of what this club can offer, and you take him out and you've only got Son, you can everyone else, they're just bang average. And for me, I just don't think, I understand what you guys are saying in terms of the rebuild and things like that, but I would rather keep Harry Kane at all costs for me. And in terms of him, if he was to stay, him having a good season, he's a professional, he wants to win that golden boot every season. He wants to win trophies. I don't think it would make any difference at all about his performance. Like you said, with the injury, he could go and get a big move and also be finished there. I think he's been lucky this season that the fact we've basically played back-to-back seasons almost, that he hasn't had a particularly long injury, which is rare for him. But again, maybe he's adapted his game a lot, so maybe he'd be less prone now.
Some interesting thoughts so far. And finally, the bun in the box. Danny, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Abby. Not in a million years is Kane. I want to see Kane leave this club. He is the epitome of Tottenham. He's in part of their DNA. He's what you want Tottenham to be. He's what every Tottenham player should aspire to be, whether that's players coming in, his mentality, his personality, his professionalism, absolutely everything this guy gives. The thing is, you can't buy, not even someone who's got half the ability, you can't buy what he's done is coming through the academy, and he's got the value of Tottenham. And you take Kane out that team, right? We're going back another 2-3 years minimum. It will be a rebuild, painful rebuild, and we're now another 2 years further back because of what Jose's stint has caused, because they didn't back him the way they should have done. So yeah, for me, that's how I see it. I can't see it any way. I mean, you can take the boy out of Tottenham, but you can't take Tottenham out of the boy.
Oh, thank you. So all your comments are really good. I'm just looking at the question. It's, the way I've kind of posed it was, could it be a good thing? I'm not saying it should be something that we should do, but given that, and I think Sid kind of touched on it, there is no player bigger than the club. Even Harry Kane, even for all he's done for us, even for all the goals, all the rest of it, him being the product of the academy and all the rest of that stuff. There is no player that we should have at a football club that's bigger than the club, because any circumstance could happen, injuries, whatever. So at this moment in time, there's a possibility that we might not be able to get any more for Harry Kane after this season or after this summer, potentially. So that's why it was posed like that. I don't think it's a good idea. But if you're asking me, could it be good for Spurs in the long run? I look at the Gareth Bale situation. We didn't do well with the money, but potentially looking at Liverpool, Coutinho, and similar type of exercises that have been happening with players, it could be, depending on what happens. That's my point.
Sorry.
Do you trust them to go and spend that money?
Can I just say one word?
You look at Hitchin.
Steve Hitchin,
Hitch out. He ain't Hitch out. He ain't going to spend that money wisely.
No.
Never in a million years. He bought
Daniel
Paulinho.
Levy's the puppet master, and he's the puppet. Just pulls his little strings and tells him what he can and can't do. So,
but think about it. In the situation that we're in now, guys, right? So we've now come off probably the worst season in the past 5 years. We're 7th place. We're in this. I call it the UCL. I'm not calling it the Conference League. We're in the UCL, and realistically, Harry Kane. Let's say he's 28, because he'll be 28 by the start of next season. In the next 3 years, do you think we as a club are going to be in a situation where Kane is going to be challenging for things that he wants to challenge for? And do you think that if we were to sell him in 3 years' time, we will be in a better situation than if we were to sell him now and kind of capitalize on the money that we make? Because I'm just thinking, I don't really see us going anywhere in 2 years' time, and Kane will only get older and he will only lose value in price. And that's the only reason why I'm thinking to sell him, because it's not down to his ability.
If he's still banging you in over 20 goals a season, then surely that's the argument to that.
He's indispensable to Spurs. He's literally that. You take him out of the team. Look, where are the goals coming from?
Yeah, I agree.
Take them out. He's literally.
And you can't even, try and buy 30 goals a season.
But you don't buy 30 goals a season with one player. What you do is you distribute that goal output between 3 or 4 players.
That's true. Yeah, but the thing is, right? Wouldn't you want Harry Kane in your team to challenge for top 4, right, for next season? Because I'll tell you this, right? The money that you get from top 4, you could lose that money if you keep Kane another year, and you make up that money by getting into the top 4. If you can sell the players, the deadwood players we've got, and reinvest in the team. Get, like Harry Kane said it himself in the Gary Neville full interview. He said we're still only 1 or 2 players away from having a really good team. So and he hasn't actually said I want to leave Spurs. He just said he wants to have a discussion. So that's whether or not, and we all know what Levy's like. Do you really? The only way Levy will even listen at things is if you see 150 million, and that only starts talking. That doesn't even say.
Is Kane playing games then? Is he trying to do something for the benefit of the club? Then is he trying to sort of force Levy's hand into kind of spending?
Darius,
if he doesn't spend, he might go.
I've been saying this for years. I've been saying Harry Kane should have done this a long time ago. If he was going to force his hand, I mean, it could be. I mean, I think there is a point in his career. He's looking at it now and he's thinking, right, this is a good age for me to move if I can get the move. If not, he said it himself. He said, I've still got 6-7 years at the top level. So, and he said he's not in a rush to win trophies, which tells me that he could still stay one more season if they can back it, he'll give it maybe one more, and then that's it. And then he'll say, "Look, I want to go." And that's how I see it.
And to be honest with you, having a new manager come in and trying to just keep even for one more season to try and and we will have loads of outgoings. Undoubtedly, there'll be loads of people out the door this summer. So even with that money and whatever. Having him for one more season under whoever this new manager is, getting us back to playing how we are, could be so much more beneficial than that money, because we can still sell him next summer and still get 100 million for him, even with 2 years left. And then that makes more sense. You're not going to let him get to the last year of his contract. That's just not going to happen. But to do it with 3 years left, when this season is so massive for us in terms of actually determining what direction this club is going back in. I just think that for the sake of one more season, just hold out and take the hit.
Before I let you guys go on, I just want to, because there's a comment here from Pipes. I just want to just put this up. So Pipes71, welcome Pipes. I have no issues with Kane being sold. It's not healthy to be so reliant on one player. If the money is spent correctly, is really my concern. And unfortunately, Idiot Levy does not have previous, or does have previous, in wasting funds. So I think that's the main issue. But the other thing I wanted to pose, just before I want you guys to go on, is it seems clear to me that Harry Kane has a desire to leave. So are the club wrong for not letting him go and fulfill his potential somewhere else in terms of going to, let's say, a Manchester City? Is that wrong?
Has he expressed that desire though, or are we going on the basis of what the media, i.e., Sky Sports, seem to be drumming down everyone's throats? Oh, Kane wants to leave. Kane wants to do this, but he's not once come out and said, "My future lies elsewhere." All he's expressed is his desire to win trophies, which any footballer in the professional, at any level, they play you play football to win trophies, don't you? So Kane's desire is no different to anyone else's. But I think. I don't know. I think I think Matt Hayes mentioned it. Clever journalism by certain people within Sky Sports, and it's making. I think it's making it out to be like Kane wants to leave, but until he actually says, "I'm done. I'm going elsewhere. I want to. This is my transfer request." I foresee that his future's still at Spurs. That might be me being naive and gullible, but
I agree.
I'm very much until I see. Exactly saying it, then I think he's a top player.
Quickly comes to Sid. Coach Sid, I just wanted to ask you, if, like you said, is it? I know he's signed up until 2024, but the club will effectively, if he does want to go, and like I said, there's not been a direct quote from Kane to say he wants to go. I know that, but looking at what happened on the last day of the season, the hugs he was giving to Son and Dele Alli didn't look like a hug of like, "I'll see you in pre-season." That looked like a hug of goodbye. So would the club be wrong in holding him to ransom, even if it was for another year, if the player has that desire to actually leave the club?
Sam, I think you're working for Sky Sports.
You know what?
I reckon those books are for Ali. I reckon those boys are saying goodbye to Ali.
See you later, mate. You're rubbish.
You're gone.
Sorry, Sid.
No, it's all right. That's right. Listen, I think we've said this before. Until it actually comes out of Harry Kane's mouth, I personally think these discussion subject that he's mentioned, right? Gary Neville said it the other day, because I watched it after the game, City game. He actually said he didn't tell me he's leaving the club. He wants to leave the club, and he didn't tell me he wants to stay at the club. All he said was, "I want to have discussions." Now, I personally think these discussions are going to be Harry Kane sitting down with Daniel Levy and saying, "Listen, mate, you've been shit for the last couple of years. You put some shit players in, right? I'm your man. City want me. United want me. You want me to stay. Proof is in the pudding. Show me the money, right? As they said in, what's it called, that film? Go and get me the top quality players. I've said to you, I want to play with De Bruyne. You're not going to get me De Bruyne. Get me 2 or 3 quality players. Let's take this team further. Give me what I need, and I will stay for one more season." I personally think he's giving a hidden agenda message there.
I think so.
Yeah. I think deep down he wants to stay.
Look, this guy, he's born and bred Tottenham, right? Through and through. He wants the thing he wants the more than anything in the world is to win a trophy, a title at Tottenham. That's what he wants, right? And it will mean more to him winning it with Tottenham or winning a big trophy with Tottenham than it would with Man City. Because with one Man City, right, he knows he can go there and win it. He's got the best players in the world there, and he knows it's guaranteed if he goes there. But with Tottenham, it will mean a lot more to him. So I agree with you, Sid. I do think that this, because it's just so, it is kind of clear what he said, right? The way he was saying it was like, like he said 3 years ago, he said in 3 years' time, if we haven't won trophies, fast forward, we're 3 years, which is now. And he said, I'm going to reevaluate my scenario, which is basically what he's going to do. He's going to have a discussion with Levy. And at the end of the day, whatever happens is down to Levy. If Levy says, okay, I'm gonna actually really build this team this summer. We're gonna sell a lot of the deadwood, get out Bobo the Clown in Aurier and Moon Boots and Eric Dyer, get them out of the club, and bring in a lot better players. And if he decides that he's not gonna do that, then he's gonna say, well, look, I think it's best it's time I go then, because I don't think you want to match my ambitions.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask another question. I'm asking Abby first, and then the others can answer as well. He's got 3 years left on his contract, and I've wrote down here, how do you think Harry Kane's going to react if Daniel Levy says, no, you're not leaving? How do you think he's going to react? As a player, given the service he's given to Spurs, how do you think he would react if Daniel Levy tells him, no, you're not going anywhere?
I don't want it to get to a point where it was with Bale, where they're handing in a transfer request. It's different with Bale. You know, Bale wasn't, through the academy one of our own, but Harry is. It's very, very different. And also, like we've touched on before, like he's been so incredibly loyal to this club. He's given everything. He's actually carried this team. Especially this season. And I think that if he genuinely wants to go, then I don't think you can stand in his way, regardless of the contract. You don't want a player at the club that doesn't want to be there. And we've had that situation before. Even with Christian Eriksen, a lot of us are on his back about it, and because you could see he was only giving you a half-hearted performance. And I don't believe that Kane would be the same person. I just don't think they're the same type of player. And the club obviously means a lot more, but you don't want to have that not negativity. You don't want to have that energy around the changing room. I don't think the new manager would want that, regardless of wanting to have Harry Kane in his side, because he wouldn't. And if that's the way he feels, then I think that's, he has nothing to be ashamed of. He has always been loyal. He said he'd stay at Spurs while the club was moving in the right direction. We haven't moved in the right direction for a good 3 seasons now. We've gone backwards tenfold. None of us can blame him for wanting to go and win trophies. And I've seen the last few days him getting a bit of hate on here. And I'm thinking to myself, are you mad? You're totally directing it in the wrong place. Like, this guy bleeds Tottenham, and he's still a professional athlete. He's a professional footballer. And if you take your bias out of it, if it was you in that position and you've been so loyal to a club, but you're unbelievable and you deserve to win everything, you can't just stay somewhere for the sentiment. I know you see the Gerrards have done it and things like that, but at the end of the day, they're playing for Liverpool. It's different.
And Gerrard won the Champions League as well.
And exactly, and he won a Champions League. Okay, we can call him Shearer, and Shearer obviously has the golden boot thing. But what I'm saying is that Harry Kane will have that, no doubt. And if he goes to City, he'll probably get there even quicker having it because of the players around him. And I don't begrudge him for going. If he wants to go, then he's done everything he can. Like we said, he's not bigger than he is bigger than the club at this point. But I wish our club would match the ambition of Harry, and then he wouldn't be bigger than the club. He's only bigger because of how bad we've been, and how bad our recruitment's been, and how bad our chairman has managed the club in especially on the pitch in the last 3-4 seasons. And the only people to blame is upstairs for me.
I'm going to ask Darius, because Darius has played football. How would you feel if the club manager, or the club, certainly not club manager, but the director said, you can't go. You want to go, but you can't go. You've got 3 years left. How would you react as a player?
It is really dependent on his situation, isn't it? Harry Kane he's come through the academy, and I think that makes a massive difference. I mean,
huge.
If it was me personally, I've given, like Abby said, I've given everything I can possibly give, and I just personally think he's chosen it was the wrong year. If he did it next year, he would be able to go, and it would be 100% he's going, because he has 2 years left. But at this situation that he's in, contracts are contracts at the end of the day. And we've heard of things about gentlemen's agreements being rejected, and people going back on their word. That's going to happen. At the end of the day, a contract's a contract. You signed a 6-year deal in 2018. We had just come off obviously second place, and we were obviously in the season where we were competing still, but he made that decision to stay for 6 years. So again, I understand and I get it. Go and do your thing. You need to go and win trophies. I think part of that comes from him maybe that's people kind of getting onto him for not winning any trophies. I don't really think it's that detrimental, but I feel like maybe the social media side of things and people clowning him, maybe he looks at that. I don't know. But for me, he's just chosen the wrong time to do it. I would be angry if I was Kane, but there's not really much I can do. And the only thing he can do, like he said, is play next season. And if he does well, we'll still be able to sell him for a good price. Yeah. But if he does get injured, or if anything happens, for example, in the season, like you said, Abbi, I don't think he won't play terribly, or he won't force himself not to play. But I think in situations where he's injured and he might be out for 4 weeks, you might see that turn into 8 weeks because he's not really rushing himself back like that. So I think there'll be small things like that we'll see. But yeah, overall, he won't change his performance. But yeah, I guess you can't really get angry. You can only really be angry upstairs and himself for signing that long deal. I guess that's the only really two things that I can say is, yeah.
On the flip side of that, though, isn't the World Cup, isn't it the finals next
well,
summer?
Exactly. So they've got the Euros, and then he's got the World Cup in December.
He's not gonna, if he doesn't get his way this season, he's not gonna just turn around and be like, yeah, no, I can't be bothered. Because I mean, there's a lot of talent in the England team now, isn't there? So he's got to be on his. He's got to be firing all cylinders. Even for
he's the most professional player of one of the most professional players I've ever seen. Yeah. His professionalism is just that is what players in our team should take a note of. Take a leaf out of his book. Someone like Dele Marley should take a leaf out of his book and literally see that. That's how to be a top professional footballer. That's how to be the world's best. I should follow that. And I think someone like Dane Scarlett in the team, I think he's taken a lot of information and sort of looking at the way Kane trains and looking at the way he does things. And I think if he keeps going the way he is, he could be a brilliant player. And he could be a brilliant player for us. And but
he's only 16 though.
Who's to say though with Harry Kane? Sorry, just to go back on that point you was making then, Danny. Who's to say that, as Darius I think mentioned earlier, if he was to get injured, Kane's always rushed back. He's been rushed back probably too soon in certain situations. The 2019 Champions League final being one of them. Who's to say the player gets injured, which is likely? And I'll go just put this graphic up just with regards to some of his goals and his injury record. So, you know, obviously his goals speak for itself. On the left-hand side, we can see the goals in the Premier League, and then the goals is a combination in the UEFA Champions League, EFL Cup, and FA Cup. So we know about his goal-scoring ability. But you can see down some of the injury records that he's had. You know, he has literally since every season he looks like he's had some form of injury apart from the I think it's 15-16 season. So player's not getting any younger, he's getting older, he gets an injury now, he wants to come back, obviously he does that. But if he's not allowed to go, do you think he's going to rush himself back? Is he going to say, you know what, I'm going to make sure I get back as quick as I can? Or is he going to be, you know, out for a period of time, 3 months? If we get a player out for 3 months, that transfer value is going to diminish. And that's what I wanted to come to next about that is, what is the realistic transfer value we could possibly get for him? Selling him now. If we don't sell him now, realistically, what could we get in the future?
I think it's 150 this season and then 100 next season as well.
I agree.
Totally agree.
Completely.
I think that's the only numbers you can really talk about, can't you, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, it's you like everybody said, you're not just paying for an elite striker, an elite playmaker. You're paying for a professional who's going to set an example throughout the club. The mentality. Do you know what I mean? He's not won a trophy, but he probably epitomizes a guy who would fight till the end. I understand the whole he came back early and that might have been the detriment to our team in the Champions League final and in the Carabao Cup final. But still, his determination to want to get back and to fight, it will radiate throughout a whole team. And so I feel like his value has to be at the 150, and that's what I mean. If it's anything below 150 this year, with 3 years left on your deal, I don't want him to. Of course, I wouldn't want to sell him. Anything less than 150, I wouldn't want to sell him. Yeah. But I'm thinking, when I look at it, and I think Harry Kane is the right time. I'm only looking at it from the perspective that we have an inevitable, difficult rebuild. And me personally, this is just me, and looking at the history of the club, I don't see us going anywhere in 2 years. So all I see is Harry Kane's value going down and us still being in the same situation. That's the only reason why I would want to sell him now. But apart from that, if it's not 150, he has to stay.
Yeah, realistically though, who's going to pay 150? Who's got 150 in the middle of a pandemic?
You can do clubs find money.
Deals. That's what I mean. There's so many.
Clubs find money. They find
Man United
and City. They find money. You'll see Mbappe go in this window probably. You'll probably see him go to Madrid, who are saddled with debt. Yeah. And you'll say, how on earth are they affording Are they affording Mbappe? And clubs find it. Clubs have money, and that's why it makes me laugh. When we always say, "Oh, Tottenham have got no money." Believe me, they've got no money. You just saw, Joe Lewis on the rich list. He's,
Abby, look at last season as well, right? Out of nowhere, we signed Sergio Reguilon. Like out of nowhere,
there's money.
Like,
Bale, the wages for Bale, all of a sudden,
100%. These clubs have got come on, they're billionaire owners. Like they've got money. It's whether or not they want to use that money to invest into the team. We know Joe Lewis doesn't like to use his money. Like he runs the business like a self-sustaining business, because it is a business to him, really. It's not a football club, let's be honest. I mean, Man City, you've got to remember as well, if they've already got about 80 to 90 million probably from revenue from the Champions League. If they win it, they get a little bit more. So they've got
but
so
they've
much
got
money.
a structure, haven't they? They've got a structure. They don't pay anything more than 60.
You've got to remember, Mike, as well. You've got to remember, right, as well. It is Kane, right? Yeah. And the other thing is, he guarantees you a good 5 seasons where you're scoring 20 to 30 goals a season with the assists as well, right? And not just that.
Homegrown as well. Sorry, Danny.
He's homegrown as well, right? And someone like Man City, you can rotate them a lot more because you've got such world-class players. So it might make him have injuries a lot less. And then the other thing is, what people forget is that look at what happened with the Bale deal, right? That wasn't a one-off 185 million. That was structured over years. And the same thing can happen, because if you offer Daniel Levy, say 35 million, 40 million a year for the next 4 years, I can't see him turning that down if it totals the figure that he wants.
But Danny, if you've got the option of Haaland and Kane, and you're going to spend 150 million, what's the better buy? What makes more sense?
Honestly,
you have to look at your investment.
Haaland, aren't you?
But my thing is, the reason is you've got to think logistically as well.
It's easier said than done, though, isn't it? It's easier said than done to say
Haaland's not going to go anywhere this season. You'd be mad to go and get Haaland when you can get him for 70 million next year. Who's going to go and spend 200 on him now? No one.
That's exactly it.
So that's the same argument as Kane, though, isn't it? Who's going to spend 150 on Kane?
No, but you're guaranteed. This is someone in the Premier League. You know what? I think Haaland is a fantastic player, but he's got 20. He hasn't played in this type of tournament before. It's very different when you go from a Bundesliga, which probably is the most competitive when you look at it in terms 100%. Of the other leagues. But it's very different when you come to the Premier League. You've got someone that is literally guaranteed to give you 20 to 30 goals per season. He's added assists to his game, and also something that you touched on before. That in terms of, look at how he runs around for Tottenham. He tracks back. You see him defending in the box. If he goes City, he's not doing any of that. He's literally sitting there. He's not using any of that pace he's got. He's not using anything.
Abbi,
he's literally standing there waiting for that service.
Could you imagine, right, Harry Kane?
Go on. You can use that argument for any of the strikers. Haaland wouldn't have to do any of that if he came in.
No, exactly. But what I'm saying is, in terms of injury, when you were saying before about injuries and stuff, he's so prone. Well, that's because he runs about, he puts in tackles. Your strikers shouldn't be doing that, in my opinion. But because
has that only been this season? Because he has developed his game.
No, it was last season. We were still talking about him dropping so deep, getting the ball from deep areas, especially after the restart, pinging the ball in because no one was giving him the service and effectively doing it himself. And that's why Son has scored so many goals this season, because of the service that Harry Kane has provided him. When you take Harry Kane and stick him up front, 100%. Where he actually needs to be, and you have someone like a De Bruyne doing all the dirty work behind him and just pinging it in for him, imagine the goals he'd get. He doesn't have to run anywhere either.
Can you imagine, right? Imagine Kane dropping deep with De Bruyne, and you've got both of those players who can ping those balls. So like the Sterlings or the Mahrez or the Bernardo Silvas or Jesus. Can you imagine?
I don't want to think about him, honestly.
Do you know what? Harry Kane will elevate them to a new level, and it will guarantee them for the next 5 years, 100%.
Bayern Munich of the Premier League, isn't it? Bayern Munich of the Premier League.
So my next question is coming out was, because I think we've almost touched on it already, though. If he were to be sold, and I'm not trying to sell him, I'm not doing the Sky Sports. I know you don't think I'm trying to get rid of Harry Kane. I'm not, but I'm just trying to be a bit of devil's advocate here. Realistically, if he were to be sold, who realistically is going to be able to afford it? Because I believe, my personal opinion is that I think Harry Kane wants to stay in the Premier League. I don't think he wants to go abroad. I don't think he's the sort of person that wants to maybe uproot his family. He seems a very settled sort of person. And for that reason, I think he'd want to stay in the Prem. Obviously, if you could stay at Tottenham, he would do. But who realistically in the Prem or outside of the Prem do we really think he could go to this season for the money that we would want to get for him? Sid, what's your first thoughts on that?
Right,
I'll
come to you first.
PSG, in my opinion, have got no money. They've got loads. And especially if they're going to sell Mbappé to Madrid or Barca, they're going to get good dividends for him. Poch being there as well. I know Poch has already had words with him trying to get him there. It all depends on what you're saying, Sam, is whether he wants to uproot his family to France and whether the PSG and the French league is going to be hard enough and big enough for him.
Farmers League.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Farmers League. Here, I think
We're playing in that next season, by the way. When we play in this UCL.
absolutely.
So
Can't wait for that.
Here, the only
ready.
two clubs that I think personally here is Man United and Man City. I think they're the only two clubs that I think have got the power and have got enough billions to spend on Harry Kane. Out of the two, I'd rather him go to Man City. I don't want him to go Man United because we've already sold them Carrick, Berbatov.
Yeah.
We've given, with Teddy Sheringham. We're not their feeder club. So Man City is, I think, the most realistic for me. And I think they'll be able to afford 150, no problem. They might play ball, but...
And you know what? We might even be able to take a few players off them. Like Abbi said, players and teams and clubs, they've got the money and you can find ways of making money. Daniel Levy, if somebody offered him 40 million for the next 4 years, he would snap their hands off because that's a guaranteed 40 million every single year. So I do believe that the money aspect isn't an issue. I really don't believe that because, like you said, you get 90 million if you're City, you get 90 million for the Champions League. You sell a couple players and that's it. You can afford it. So I just think it will be completely down to Harry Kane and Daniel Levy. If he gets them, if he sets a price, he says 150, 160, whatever, and they put the money on the table. However way he gets that, he is going because he's not going to stop Harry Kane from leaving because we've understood now that's what he wants, in my opinion.
I want to come to Mike, and based on this comment here from G-Mart, ask yourself this question: Who would you buy to replace Kane at 150? And would they come with no CR and will they play for the badge? Personally, before you answer that, Mike, I don't think we can replace him with one player. I think we need to replace him with two, maybe even three players.
Yeah.
But who would it be?
What if we were to replace
get
him like for
150?
like? If one one player or
well, give me your thoughts. If it was like for like, who would it be? Realistically, though, we're talking Tottenham Hotspur here. So we're not going to get Mbappe, and we're not going to get Haaland.
Exactly, that's the problem. The two strikers we're not going to realistically get, are we? And the two strikers that I'm thinking of is Haaland and Mbappe, but you're never going to get them because there's no Champions League football, and we're not fighting for titles. So why would they come to Spurs? And to be fair, when you look at the next sort of category down to the very good strikers, etc., I don't even know who I would want firing for Tottenham up the top. I honestly don't. I just don't have a clue. There's no one out there that sort of strikes me as that could be a great strike for Tottenham. I know there's people mentioned Danny Ings, but we can't be serious. If we want to be fighting for silverware, etc., Danny Ings isn't the player. So I honestly don't know. You could go on, Danny.
No, go on.
No, go on. What you going to say?
I was just going to say, I don't think they're going to look to try and replace someone of his ilk or anywhere close to his ilk. I think what they'll do is if they sell Kane, that basically tells you they're going to start from the bottom up and they're going to start a complete new rebuild. Okay. And for me, you've got to go for young players, and then you've got to try and mix it with who we've got and who wants to stay, basically, and then get rid of the deadwood out. For me, you have to get. So you'd have to. So first of all, right, Vinicius is gone, and if Kane goes, we've got no strikers. So you're going to have to get two strikers in. Right. For me, if you're going to go for someone like Danny Ings, you need a young striker because Danny Ings has got injury problems. I wouldn't mind him in the squad.
Too old.
But the thing is, he's Premier League proven. And even though the only thing is, right, that he can contribute, this word that everyone says about if we're going to get goals from all around the squad, he can contribute. I'm not saying he's going to be a 30-goal, 20-goal striker. If he gets 12 goals even, then you get another striker who's got 12 goals, or you've got a midfielder who's got 10 goals. Son contributes if he stays. So that's the thing. So for me, like I've always liked the look of Patson Daka, man. Patson Daka, he is phenomenal. Very good player. He is rapid. He's tall. He can play on both feet. He's composed. He's got he just won the Austrian Player of the Year, which is what Haaland won last year when he was there, just before he left to Dortmund. He's unbelievable, and we were linked with him as well. We were in talks, but apparently his agent said that he wouldn't entertain because he wanted to play another year at Salzburg, where he is, and also because Kane was there, and because he's the first team striker, and he actually wants to be the first team striker. So there is an element that I would say I would go in for him. And then maybe someone else like Danny Ings maybe is another backup.
So if you're going Danny Ings, he's got to be a second striker, isn't he?
Danny Ings as a second striker would be great, though. I think.
Imagine if you able to rotate the two.
Dybala again. Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna. I said you can't replace Kane like for like unless you get someone like Mbappe or someone like Haaland, which is not realistic. So I think we're going for 2 or 3 players. I think you're right in what you're saying, Danny. I think we'd have to go for 2 strikers, but we need a playmaker as well. So we need a creative midfielder to allow, because I don't believe Dele Alli's that player. I think Tongai could be, but whether or not he's going to be, it's to be seen. Same thing for Lascelles. I'm not quite sure if he's that player. We need an out-and-out creative midfielder, but I also think we need a wide player as well. So there's probably about 3 or 4 players.
You know who fills that perfectly? Emi Buendia. He plays out right and he plays for the centre. I think you'd be. I think if you had Emi Buendia, for me, my choice of strikers would be in the Premier League. I'd choose Danny Ings and Calvert-Lewin. They would be my 2 strikers that I would go and get from Tottenham, because that literally ticks the boxes for all the kinds of strikers you need. You got a quick, tall striker who can win headers. You got Danny Ings who can press. He wouldn't. I don't know if he would, but like for me, I think he's 23, 24. I think that he would be the ideal. He's the closest to Harry Kane in the Premier League that I can see out of all the players, and he scored 16 goals this season. Don't forget. So he's had a really good season. I just think that, like you said, it has to be multiple positions. And do we honestly trust the board to go and find? You know what I mean? Go statistically, or use data analysis, or use something a little bit out of the ordinary to try and find a decent player for a decent price. No, they'll just look for who's kind of linked on I genuinely believe they just look who's linked on Twitter, who's in the rumors, and they'll think, let's choose him.
You know
what, Darius?
You know what talking about?
Go on, Sid.
No, I say, we was talking about strikers, and what we've got in terms of strikers. I was going through the stats before, and not classing Son as a striker because I don't see him as an out-and-out striker. But the last time we had a striker score a goal apart from Harry Kane, right? 2021 season, Kane top scorer. Son and Bale were second. 2019-2020, Kane again, Son. 2018-19, Kane, Son. 17-18, Kane, Son. 16-17, Kane, Ali,
you're depressing me.
Was that the great Ali season, wasn't it? Yeah. 2014, Adebayo scored 13 and Soldado scored 11. So 2013 and 14 was the only time, apart from Kane, we've had 2 recognised goal scorers. That's ridiculous.
Look at these players. If we were to get these 3 players, would that make a difference to us as a team?
No.
So Harry Kane, Zaha, Wakehorse.
I'm not. Do you know what? I'm not a massive Zaha fan. He's 29 years old, right? I don't rate him. I do not rate him. I don't know why this massive hype. Yeah, he can dribble, but he hasn't got an output. He just reminds me of a better Aaron Lennon, to be honest. And it doesn't fill me with any joy, to be honest. If we're going to rebuild this team.
Are you reading this comment here, Danny? Are you reading this comment? What were we talking about in the group chat earlier on?
Oh yeah,
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Not having Ollie McBurney. No.
Do you know what? Right, I genuinely think one of the key positions we actually need, and I think we've missed out a lot this season. I know centre backs. We know the centre backs in the defence situation, but for me, I think it's been the player next to Højbjerg, because I think we've lost out the midfield battle so many times this season because Ndombele, he can do it, right? He don't get this wrong. At the start of the season, you saw it. He can defend if he wants to, but he's lazy, doesn't want to. And I think also the fitness element plays a part in it. So whether or not the next manager can get the whole squad's fitness up, which is what essentially everyone needs their fitness up anyway, because we've seen it's a joke this season. So he could be that player next to Højbjerg, but I think where I've liked him more is in that central attacking midfield role. And I think he'd be an unbelievable player if he was fit in that centre attacking midfield role. And I think who I would like to replace him in that pivot, for me, it would be Bissouma. That's who I'd go and get.
Højbjerg and Bissouma would be like, you'd be able to let your strikers just do whatever they want.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%.
He reminds me of like a Kante. He just reminds me like a Kante. He's an engine, that guy. And he can shoot as well.
I think Skip's got more potential.
I'm so excited like you for Skip.
Oh yeah.
I'd have Skip.
The thing is, right, I want Skip there as well. But the thing is, what happens if Skip or Højbjerg gets injured? We got no one.
No, you're right. You're right. We have to bring in someone else 100%. And for me, Ndombele is much better when he's further forward and he can pick the pass and he can use. Got beautiful feet. That guy, brilliant. Like he just so good and intricate. He can do anything for your striker that's in front of you. And I love it. I love it when he plays in that role. And obviously, we haven't had that this season. And I totally agree with you. We need someone that is alongside Højbjerg in the midfield. Our midfield's just not strong enough. And you look at Lascelles, and I've had this discussion a few times about Lascelles. So I think we read the situation wrong. So I think we thought he was coming in to be a like for Eriksen, and he's actually not like Eriksen at all. He's way more defensive. He prefers playing deeper. Whether or not he's actually that good deeper, I don't know.
That's another story.
So that was his position at PSG when he was first at PSG. He used to play there. So,
but I think we read that situation completely wrong, personally. And obviously the injuries haven't helped either. But I totally agree with you. And Ndombele further forward, we've seen it in games. When he has played there, and it's rare that he's played there. But when he has, I feel we can always score when he plays
both feet
further
as
forward.
well. He can play passes of both feet.
Oh, just technically.
I'll give an example of that ball that he played, to Harry Kane against Man United for the first goal. That ball was unbelievable. That was De Bruyne-esque, that ball. The way he played that. And he can and the one against Newcastle on the outside of the boot, wasn't it, I think? He's unbelievable. He's unbelievable.
Just got a lot of square pegs. We've got a lot of square pegs in round holes, I think, in our squad, and just a lot of people that aren't quite up to the task. And that's because of our recruitment and how we let it go stale again. That's just the lack of challenging on anyone's position. But I think that there are certain players like an Ndombele, a Højbjerg, even a Reguilon. I know he's had a bit of a shit through like a few months, but again, I think there's a lot of potential in him. So I think there's a few there. I'd say there's probably like about 6 players within that squad that are worth something and can be built around. I think that the general bulk of the squad is the problem, and their attitude is the problem.
But that's the thing, isn't it? So you can keep Kane. Like the argument would be to keep Kane, sell the dead wood, and raise funds that way, and then you recruit cleverly, don't you? Like Leicester. I mean, we all seen it. We've probably all mentioned it before. Leicester's recruitment is probably something that we should strive to follow. And if you recruit, if you've got someone that can recruit cleverly, then you don't need to go out and buy the big bucks. You can, if your scouting network's up to the job, they should be able to find you the talent that you don't need to go out and buy the big players. And you'd hope that they'd come in and be able to do the sort of job that we would hope that they could do. But
guys,
I honestly have no faith.
I'm just gonna say this because I want to wrap up
soon, isn't it?
But I want to ask you this question. What convinces Harry to stay? And I'll go around each of you quickly on this. What would convince him to stay? Mike?
Oh, don't start me. I don't.
I've got one. If you want me to start, I do have one.
I'll go to Darius.
I can't think of anything.
I've got a one-word answer for this one.
Go on then.
In my opinion, the only thing that's going to convince Harry Kane to stay is Pochettino. I genuinely believe if Pochettino comes back, then Kane will stay. If not, then I don't think Kane will really want to stay unless obviously we invest heavily and he sees a few worldies or elite players come in. Pochettino will be able to convince him to stay.
I totally agree with you.
Hold on, you're going to get your time in a minute, Abby. Don't start talking yet. I'm going to come back to Mike last. Sid, you're next. You've got to wait in order, people.
For me, it's the words he said in that Gary Neville interview. I need to have that discussion, and that discussion will, for me, cement what's going to happen to Harry Kane. It's that discussion with Daniel Levy, and he's going to have to say, this is exactly what I want. Are you going to give it to me? Even if it means bringing Poch in. But it's that discussion is massive. It's going to be so important for Tottenham, Harry Kane, Daniel Levy, everyone. And it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Abby, you can have your say now. This is you.
I totally agree with Darius. I think that for me, if Poch, I don't believe for 1 second Poch is coming back. So I'm just not even looking at that ridiculousness. But yeah, I think that would be the only person that could convince Kane to give this a real proper shot in next season. I still think he'll go, regardless of all the stuff we're talking about. We all raise very valid points, but I still think he'll go, and I think he deserves to go if he wants to go. So yeah, unless it's Poch, I just can't see anyone doing it. And just as Darius did touch on it earlier on, I forgot to say it about his mentality and character. He said, and Larissa said it as well, the two probably most senior people in that squad have both said about Jose Mourinho, okay? That Jose, and this is not me defending Jose because there's a lot of bad things about Jose, but the good thing was that the two most elite players in that team both said he weren't the problem. Look at the bigger picture in terms of the squad, and I fully believe that. And for all it's worth with Jose, I think he sold himself short in the fact that he was so stubborn and wouldn't change certain things, and that was probably his biggest downfall. I think a lot of the time players will always go off his reputation. Look at what he came from with United, and when it's good, and when it's bad, they all shove the manager under the bus. The same players that did it to Pochettino. So for me, as much as Jose was at fault in certain aspects and certain ways he approached games, you've got the two most senior players say, look, have a look at the bigger picture. He really ain't the problem here. And I think we all know that he really probably wasn't the real problem, and that you can't sack a 25-man squad.
Yeah.
Huh?
You're coming on to what I was going to say, Abby. I mean, if I was Harry Kane,
Have your say, Danny. Have your say.
I would go.
What
I would go
convinces
to
you?
Daniel Levy. I think you need to hand Harry Winks' CV to a ballet school because he needs to be a ballerina, right? I think Sissoko needs to change profession. He needs to maybe be a rugby player because he can kick a ball high in the sky, but he can't kick it into a goal or pass, do a 5-yard pass. So I think there's a few players. I think Davis should maybe be the ball boy. Yeah, there's a few. There's so many players in that squad, and Dyer. Oh my god, I think he should be an astronaut. I mean, with those moon boots he's got. So yeah, I mean, there's too many players in that team that are stealing a living at Spurs. And if I was Harry Kane, I'd be making those demands. I'd say I'd have my book there, my list of players I want out that squad. And I'm saying, right, you get rid of Aurier, Dyer, Sissoko, Ben Davies, let him stay. But I'd get rid of all the Deadwood players that need to go.
Danny's gone.
Right?
He's going. We've lost Danny.
Literally, if they're not out the squad, I'm gone. I am gone. That's what I would say. And then I would say I would actually get him to sign a contract. Say I want a written contract from you, and saying you're going to bring in this player. You're going to spend X money, Y, whatever. Otherwise, I'm gone. That's what I'll do. And I agree with Abby. What Abby and Darius are saying. I think only someone like Pochettino, I mean, can really get him to stay. Can you see Graham Potter saying, Harry Kane, we're gonna challenge top form in the title next year? Like Graham Potter, really? Yeah, no chance.
Can you bring your manager back? You've sacked before. That's the problem as well, isn't it?
Mike, you've had chance now. You've had chance to think about. Daddy's gone off. That's why Daddy in the group chat, when we have chats in the group. Oh my god, it goes off.
Oh,
but
mate.
Anyway,
I get angry.
Right. The way to keep Kane at this club is quite straightforward in my eyes. There's a certain French gangster that there's no other word for it. He's a gangster, and that is Uncle Sissoko. I think Levy should move aside from negotiations and let Uncle Sissoko take them forward. And I'm pretty certain if Uncle Sissoko is in charge of those negotiations, we will keep Harry Kane.
He'll probably pay us to leave, Mike. He'll probably pay us to leave. That's how good it will be.
I think you found Sissoko's new profession.
He's a
lead negotiator.
Interrogation.
He is. It's down to Sissoko. The French mafia he should be in charge of negotiations, because how he stayed at this club, it's beyond me. I'm speechless. But he's the key to Kane staying.
Imagine Harry Kane going up to Daniel Levy and go, you've got a player called what's his name, Lamela, Coco, whatever you call him. He's only scored 17 goals in 7 years, in 8 years. I mean, in the Premier League. I mean, Bale's come back and scored 6. Yeah, it's a true stat. 17 goals in the Premier League.
Now. Here we go.
No, but I'm just saying, right? I'm trying to say, why would Kane want to stay with these bunch of pathetic players, right? Why would he actually want to stay there? He's looking around. He's looking around on the pitch. He's like, oh my God, God help me! I've got these absolute shit on my team.
Sissoko's key to any negotiations for these type of players that we want to stay at the club. Leave him to negotiate, because no one's going to say they're not going to refuse what he's putting to the table. He will get what he wants. So Levy should just employ him and let him take it forward. Because
number 17 is now going to be our chief negotiator. He's definitely in charge of that whole squad, that whole team. He's doing something, whatever he's doing.
He's in charge of the French national squad. How's he playing France?
Good grief. Guys, this has been really good. I think we could probably do another thing. We need to do another show. Maybe if we get some more information about Harry Kane, we should do something else to continue this talk, because I'm sure this is going to rumble on for the summer. I don't think it's going to get done in the next 10 days, whatever it is, before the Euros. So I think it's going to run and run. But those who are watching, thank you very much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Please like, please share, and leave comments afterwards as well. I'd like to thank all my guests. I'd like to thank Mike. I'd like to thank Darius. I'd like to thank Sid. I'd like to thank Abby and the Bun, as per usual. Guys, it's been really good. And we'll leave you with some Neo. Thank you very much. Hit that like button as we do.
Bangers early.